Hi, welcome back to Storytime with Dan Booker. Appreciate you coming back. We're going to continue on with Sheriff in a Small Town. I'm trying to keep on schedule here. So, if I miss a day, I apologize, but we're going to stay trying to do it every 2 or 3 days. So today we're doing an Flame Rekindled. And I'm not going to just talk about it. I'm going to start reading here. No, we did cold cases. I don't want to do that again. No. Okay, there we go. A Flame Rekindled. Rocky had to get quite a few stories to make up for the one he couldn't print. There was the one about Root Humphreys, who was arrested for being a nuisance at the bowling alley. He'd been using the pin setters as targets, which was seriously frowned on by the management. When he actually hit one of them with injury to their legs, he was remanded and fined enough to pay the setters' medical bills plus something extra. Let's see, then he had a piece on the high school's marching band director being fired for teaching the band Wake Up Little Susie, which had been banned by the school for its sexual nature. There was an effort for the majority of the town to have him reinstated. A closer look at the lyrics had been accomplished, and the interpretation was that the couple had merely fallen asleep and had not been engaged in any intimacy. The decision of the school board was still pending. A good standout piece was about the regular breaking of windows on Garland Avenue. Since it usually happened about 5 in the morning when it was still dark, nobody had seen who was doing it. Sheriff Morgan and Rocky staked out the street and disclosed that old Tom Paxton, at the age of 73, had decided to take on a short newspaper delivery route. He still had a good arm from when he pitched for the Sentries 45 years ago. Unfortunately, his aim was none so good anymore. He was fined for the breakages in order not to deliver papers anymore. Word was put out that he was going to be a trainer for the Little League team, the Patriots, where his knowledge and skills could be passed on. Editor Nelson decided to cut Rocky a break and let him try another case from Morgan's files. Things were slow in town lately, and Rocky thought he might have hit on the way to get into the sheriff's good graces. Sheriff, what about if we took on a case together? I'm not claiming I can do things as good as a pro like you, but I'm another set of eyes and maybe a fresh perspective. Sheriff Morgan lowered his feet off his desk and rifled through the papers Rocky handed him. It is kind of quiet around here. It might be giving me something to do. Hand off the paper regarding some thefts that have been happening lately. Well, not exactly cold case. It wasn't on the active list, but pending. The sheriff handed the papers to Rocky and went to a county map on the wall. Go off the places that things had been stolen from, and we'll tack them on the map. Rocky watched. I apologize. Its dentures are loose. Rocky watched as pins were placed in at various locations on the map. On bits of papers, the sheriff listed what was stolen at each location and tagged them also. Well, not exactly a circle. It was close enough that the sheriff was able to locate a bullseye center. The center was on Ms. Oleary's farm. It wasn't a large farm, only about 15 acres. She was known to keep goats, a few sheep, and grew clover for her beehives. Rocky scratched his head. It didn't seem a likely place for a theft ring. In the squad car, Morgan told Rocky what he knew about Ms. Oleary. Seems she inherited the place from her grandparents. There were others in the family who got a lot of other properties, but she had worked the farm when she was a youngster and the others didn't. She's made a go of it on her own, too. She's a pretty little thing, but seems to prefer being alone. The only males are a cockerel and a couple of old billy goats. Yes, she's happy the way things are. The farm looked more substantial than it was. Grandpa Oleary had been forced to sell the greater portion of his fields a long time back, and the part he kept had the major barns, a substantial hen house, and a large farmhouse. Approaching up the gravel drive, they were greeted by 2 border collies who barked excitedly at having visitors. Mrs. O'Leary walked out of the house looking curiously at the sheriff's car. As Morgan exited the vehicle, she met him with a warm smile and handshake. "Pleased to see you, Sheriff. More so as I was just on the phone trying to reach you." She led them up on the porch, brought them out a glass of lemonade, and joined them. Morgan sipped at the lemonade and edged deeper into the lawn chair. "Well, what can I do for you?" "Sheriff, for a while now, things haven't been right here. I'm not getting as many eggs as I'm used to, and I've lost a few hens. I put it down to foxes at first, and the eggs down to ferrets. I shot a fox a couple of weeks ago, but it's still happening. I've also lost some preserves I made recently and had out on the porch waiting to go down into the cellar." A look came over her face that seemed to say that she knew these were trivial things and probably not what the sheriff would trouble himself over. Sheriff Morgan took another sip of the lemonade, then drained his glass easily. Smacking his lips, he put the glass down in front of her, hoping for a refill. "Well, I'm not sure what we can do about the missing eggs and hens. As you say, you caught a fox. It was probably them to blame." He suddenly became thoughtful. Rocky decided to interject while the sheriff was thinking. "How many eggs do you usually collect, and what's the difference that concerns you?" She blushed. "It's only 2 or 3 less a day, but it adds up. The chickens seem to be one a week." Rocky remembered Sunday dinners of fresh roasted chicken he'd had when he was a boy. "Usually on Sundays?" She looked startled. "Why, yes, as a matter of fact. What made you ask?" The sheriff nodded knowingly. "Yeah, Sunday's usually chicken dinner." The sheriff finally got around to introducing Rocky. "Ms. O'Leary, this is Rocky Stone of the Sentinel. He's interested in the random robberies happening lately. I offered to take him around and show him where some had happened." She cocked her head to one side and a slow smile brightened her face. "But I hadn't reported mine yet, so what brings you out?" The sheriff returned the smile. "You just happen to be within the confines of the grouping, so we thought we'd check and see if anything had happened that you hadn't reported yet." From inside, a grandfather clock told the 11th hour. Miss O'Leary asked them to excuse her as she had to tend to the goats feeding. She invited them to walk with her so they could continue their discussion. As she fed and watered her charges, Morgan asked a few more questions while Rocky walked around the barns. He took quite a few pictures and joined Morgan. Rocky asked permission to take a walk on the fence line and take a few pictures from different areas. Miss O'Leary shrugged and allowed it, but couldn't see the point. She invited Morgan back to the porch for coffee and a muffin. When Rocky returned, Morgan was more than ready to leave. He practically dragged Rocky to the car and sped off. What the hell was the point of taking pictures from so damn far away? Barns and everything is right across from the field from where you went. Let me get the pictures developed first, and I'll show you. Sheriff, it's going to sound crazy after seeing Mrs. O'Leary, but I swear she's somehow involved in these robberies. Sheriff let loose a loud guffaw and continued to laugh all the way into town. In the sheriff's office, Morgan went over the missing items and Rocky went to get his film developed. One thing they all had in common was they were small household items and canned foodstuffs. A few sticks of lawn furniture missing from porches and front yards. None were worth much and not worth bothering about once missing. They told the sheriff about it more in passing than expecting him to act on it. Rocky came back, and by the cock-a-hoop walk he had found something. Agness was already there, hearing about their experience at Miss O'Leary's. Rocky pulled up a chair and plopped down happily. "All right, Rocky, seems you found something that tickles you. What'd you get?" Rocky placed the first picture so they could see it. It was of the fence at the far end of her acreage. These marks seemed to be where someone dragged something heavy over it. Cuts are deep, and the paint is peeled off in half-inch strands. Sheriff considered this. Well, there'd been other marks they considered as normal, but as there are only ones there, and here far from the barns will accept that it's peculiar. I need something to drink. Hold on one second. Oh, that's old coffee. Like you say, Sheriff, they're far away from the barns, but in direct line of them. I made a slight score on the fence and looked at the amount of discoloration on the other. I'd say this score is only a few weeks old. Slap the next picture down. Agness, you've got good eyes for details as well as being the prettiest I've ever seen. What's wrong with this picture? The picture was a mound of goat droppings, hay, and other odds and ends. It was one of three, and Agness quickly saw something different about this one over the others. She reached across her father's desk for a magnifier. Dad, I think I see what Rocky's talking about. There's more dirt and rocks under the pile than this and the other two. I'd say someone was digging a well, or there's a lot of dirt there. Can I call Catherine and check? Morgan handed her the phone. She hung up and announced nothing had been done for any reason. Rocky, I don't think she's involved like you think she is. If so, she'd have made up some story for the dirt, rocks, and stuff. Rocky shrugged and brought out another picture. I was walking around the far side of the hen house and saw what looked like a wood showing from underneath the dirt. The picture showed a corner of wood, and the shadow showed where the dirt was raised fairly regularly in a rectangle. You got me convinced. Called Oleary and got permission to do a stakeout. He said he'd park on the far side of the barns, hidden away from the house, from the goats and hens. They waited until late afternoon, around dusk. Let me get a little bit more. Let that coffee sit too long. It's terrible. In the barn were three people, Morgan, Agness, and Rocky. Morgan and Rocky had attempted to talk Agness out of it, but she was not going to be left behind. Rocky was on the lower level looking directly at the area that he believed held a covered hole. Morgan sat up in the loft with binoculars to keep an overall look, and Agness went quickly and quietly to hide behind a tree near a small lake where she could keep the door of the house under observation. In the chill off the lake made Agness wish she'd brought a sweater even though the evening was warm. A chink of light from the door of the house, and she saw Catherine come out dressed in a flannel robe and slippers. She was headed straight for the lake. Rocky was laying on the ground watching his spot when he noticed the ground had risen about a foot. The dirt and stones didn't move, so Rocky assumed that water had been poured on them. From above, Rocky heard Morgan inform him the person was slithering out from the hole. In the darkness, they couldn't see much, but the person was creeping for the lake. Rocky began to elbow crawl behind the person, being quiet but swift. Agness was aghast as she saw the robe fall and Catherine dove into the water naked as could be. She wondered if it was for Rocky's benefit to tease him, since they had always had a bit of a competition where men were concerned. She allowed herself a moment of jealousy, but thought perhaps she'd only forgotten. She knew Catherine since they had been in school together, and though beautiful and intelligent, she did have a tendency towards forgetfulness. The person Rocky was trailing was visible in a momentary shaft of light. The appearance was that of a male. He paused as he looked at the lake. Easing along, he was partially hidden again in the gloom. Morgan dropped from a rope tied off on the head beam and made his way along the outside. Circling the hen house, he saw and approved of Rocky's action as he watched him close the distance towards the intruder. 3 feet from the lake, a gasping yell of anger came from the water. Just as the man made himself ready to leap into the water, Rocky sprang up, put the man in a headlock. Catherine was momentarily stunned, and Agness ran to the lake, jumped in, and dragged her out. As she was pulled to the shore, the man spun, and he and Rocky dropped backwards into the lake. Morgan came up, pulled the man out, and was shocked before he saw the blow coming. He returned the blow with interest that sent the intruder sprawling. Agnes's sodden dress was clinging to her body as she helped Catherine into her robe. The cool breeze was chilling them both. Rocky climbed out of the water and dove into the fray as the man started to rise, ready to lunge at Morgan. Rocky set the man sprawling, pinioned the man's hands behind him. Mrs. O'Leary, can you identify this person? Morgan asked as he flashed the light in the man's face. Catherine looked and glared indignantly. I guess I'm putting words in here I can't pronounce. Indignantly. It's Harold Beamish. He used to have a crush on me in school. Now, where did he come from? Morgan took his prisoner in tow and told Catherine, Agness, and Rocky to go inside and dry off. He'd be back in an hour as soon as he had taken care of Harold. In the house, the fire was lit in the fireplace, and Agness was given a dressing gown to slip into as her clothes dried close to the fire. Rocky was given a towel to wrap around himself, and he also placed his clothes near the fire. In a while, the steam made the house look like a sauna. Catherine opened windows for a cross breeze, and they waited for the sheriff to return. She thanked them both for their quick action. Blushing, she apologized for skinny dipping at such an inopportune moment. I plumb forgot you all were coming tonight. I was hot and just needed to cool off. Catherine scurried off to fill a large teapot. Agness sat in front of Rocky as he proceeded to comb her hair. Catherine returned with tea and toast, but stopped at the side of Rocky, combing and braiding Agnes's hair. She handed Agnes her tea and whispered in her ear, if I ever seriously consider getting someone in my life, I want one like him. Agness reached back and squeezed Rocky's hand. Rocky finished Agnes's hair and reached for his own cup. By the time Morgan returned, Emma was fresh, dry, and full of tea and toast. He brought extra flashlights out of the squad car. Together they went to see the hole Harold had crawled out of. It was larger than they had expected, and while not exactly comfortable, it was livable. A small kerosene lantern provided light, lawn chairs to sit in, food stocked on dugout shelves, a small pot, and a makeshift stove. A radio provided entertainment and a rolled-up air mattress with a blanket for sleeping. Catherine was troubled that he had been there for 3 weeks. About the time the theft started. Must have taken a week to get this out, board it up, and then he started collecting the furnishings. Catherine shuddered at the thought that he could have been there all that time. God knows what he would have done if you hadn't found him. Morgan shook his head. He just got out of jail a month and a half ago for breaking and entering a few counties over. Seems he thought your place would be out of the way enough he could just camp here, and besides, bring him closer to you. Catherine looked at Rocky. You know, it seems I might just need a man about the place after all. Agness clutched Rocky's arm, making Catherine grin. She pulled up and placed a hand on Rocky's shoulder. Rocky, what do you think? Rocky choked and put his arm around Agness, stammering something unintelligible. Well, she repeated, boxer or German Shepherd? So that's it. Next chapter is interesting. That's the title. It's not. It is interesting as well. But so that's it for today. I will do another one. Today is Wednesday. Happy 15th if you celebrate it. And so got nothing else really to say. We'll do that one in a couple of days, probably Friday. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Have a good day, and I will see you all again very soon. So thanks for visiting. Hey, do me a favor, like and subscribe, become a member. I'll start thinking of something like that. Cups like this of some of my other books. It's got the first book on the front, and then it's got the rest of the series on the back, along with some of my other books that are on there. So maybe I'll make a collection, and I can start giving some away or something. If you think you'd like something like that, let me know in the comment section. Cups a lot nicer than that coffee. Anyways, again, for visiting, I will see you. I have to get my mouse. Don't want to squeeze it too hard, it'll squeak. So you have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye. And I can't close this thing down. Okay.